Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Health and Wealth Group project. Today, we're looking at two data sets from the Human Development Index dataset chart. But before we start, we first need to know what HDI is. The Human Development Index is a composite statistic of life expectancy, education, and per capita income indicators, which are used to rank countries into four tiers of human development. Generally speaking, a country scores higher HDI when the lifespan is higher, the education level is higher, and the GDP per capita is higher. The two variables we chose from the data set is the forest area of the total land and the percentage of homeless people due to nature disasters. We're interested in those variables because they can have a very strong connection with one another. The first one is pretty straightforward since it just shows the percentage of forest on the land for each country. Though the percentage doesn't simply increase just because the HDI of a country is high, it also heavily depends on the geographic location of the country. The second one is slightly more interesting since it not only shows the percentage of the homeless people, but also indicates the cause of why they're homeless, which are natural disasters.
So our first variable is forest area of total land, which is forest area is land under natural or planted stands of trees of at least 5 meters in situ, whether productive or not. And based on our research, the world forest area is still on the decline. So you guys can see on the right side the data, which is the world forest cover from 1990 to 2010, and which is categorized by the regions. Uh, except Europe, like the other regions, like the data, it's all decreasing. So uh, the forests provide many important goods such as timber and paper. They also supply essential services. For example, they filter water, control water runoff, protect soil, regulate climate cycle, and store nutrients and provide habitat for countless animal species and space for recreation.
The second variable we chose is the homeless with the natural disaster. So it's like disaster makes 40 million people homeless each year, and the record displacement could recess population as well, and the impact of the climate change become more rise and said a reporter issued on Friday by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, and based on the um, internal displacement material central, and the 8 of the 10 countries with the highest level of the displacement and housing loss in the south are in South and the Southeast Asia. They include India, where an average of the 2.3 million people are forced to leave their homes. Actually, the China with the 1.3 million people after each year funded the report released on the National Day for Disaster Reduction. The numbers include those executed ahead of the threatened people displaced by straw or raising seats.
So there is two charts, and the first one is to show the variable change of the natural disaster, and from the 19th century, 20th century to 2017th. So the natural disaster will increase from about 0 to 500. And for the second chart, it's about the change of the international homeless people, and so it's variable, but at 21st century, it's have a big jump, the increase, and they uh, go down and to the normal normal
Average.
data, yeah, average data. And so the hypothesis is that we examine the two variables and expect the larger the forest area of total land is. So we think the less people will be homeless by natural disaster. So this is the method we found. So from these two chart is the evidence confirms that in some cases, well-established forests and tree plantations have offered an effective physical barrier against this natural disaster and help save both life and property. However, forests have limited in prevention of natural disaster. Besides, illegal logging, land misuse, and poverty that forces people to live in high-risk areas also decrease the preventive role of forests.
We also created a scatter plot chart depending on the data we chose, and as you can see, they have a very strong correlation between both because we observed that the higher the forest area percentage is, the less homeless people due to natural disaster appears. So, in conclusion, according to all the data sets and the chart we found were created, we claim that the hypothesis is correct. And if those, so overall, if there is more forest area in total land, the natural disaster will be decreased. And if we have a better tree plantation, the number of homeless people will be decreased as well. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you very much.